Cyberpunk 2077 has had one of the craziest histories in all of gaming. When this game first was announced, people were pog champing hard. And yes, that was a time when pog champs were a thing. And then it came out, and people were devastated. This game, when it initially came out, was barely playable. It barely functioned. It was riddled with bugs and so many things. It literally made CDPR almost go bankrupt. And we don't know the full story of this, but my personal speculation is, considering they got sued by three different huge groups of people, and they most likely lost all of them through mediation, well, they most likely needed to take money from outside sources like, Vanguard, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Stanley's, and all of those cool sounding companies that don't ruin everything about society. Wink, wink. And then, slowly CDPR brought Cyberpunk 2070 back. Yes, this game is one of the biggest redemption stories in all of gaming. Right there, next to, I'm spacing out on the name, but the space exploration game, the one that, people compare Starfield to, that one, and many others, honestly. And now there's so many worries that CDPR Red has gone completely woke. I mean, the Witcher 4 release trailer, everything that they have said, the proven lies of the CEO of the company, them opening a branch in Hellscape Torment Land known as California, and even worse, Hellscape Torment Land known as Quebec, Canada. It's all looking pretty bad, to say the least, okay? And now, the talks about Cyberpunk 2077 getting an expansion, another one, is just growing and growing and growing. Everyone thinks that it's happening. Everyone's talking about it. And, I kind of want it to be true.
Believe it or not, Cyberpunk 2077 has been teasing what looks to be a brand new upcoming DLC or expansion alongside another update. There are a few reasons that a DLC seems highly likely. For one is that they are teasing new Cyberpunk characters on their Twitter account. They've been sharing character birthdays through a Cyberpunk calendar and said, oh, don't worry about the encrypted data, it's just a glitch in the system. And if you look closely at the calendar, those aren't just blank slots, it actually says encrypted data. And since none of the characters that they're showing here are Edgerunners characters, it's kinda hard to believe that the encrypted characters will be related to the new anime. They teased this again in a recent—
And by the way, yes, that is a new anime. I don't know how I feel about the new anime, because I don't know anything about the new anime, but again, the woke fears about CDPR Red are so on point. Everyone is concerned. Everyone who has been paying attention is concerned, because there's a huge chance that the glory days of Wild Hunt, of the redemption of Cyberpunk, are over. That the glory days of, body type A and body type B are soon upon us.
Recent reply when someone said, y'all have a calendar for this? And they mentioned the encrypted data again. You'd think, well, maybe they're just related to Cyberpunk's sequel, Orion, but that's still so far away, and not coming until sometime after The Witcher 4.
Yeah, Orion is like so long in the pipeline, you can't even see it.
Not to mention that they're probably going to spend more time on it than they did 2077 with how the launch for that went. And they spent a lot of time on 2077. That thing took years. Maybe they're just teasing an Orion trailer coming, and that could be the case. I mean, the trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 came out long before the actual game did, at least the first trailer. But in one of CD Projekt Red's recent earnings calls, they said that within the next 18 months, they're expecting a large profit bigger than what Phantom Liberty brought them.
After 2 full years, we've delivered 951 million zloty, which accounts for 48% of the target. Even though we do not plan to release The Witcher 4 by the end of 2026, we are still driven by this financial goal, and although it's very ambitious, we stand a chance of achieving it within the given time frame.
What could possibly be bigger than Phantom Liberty? If it weren't for them teasing new Cyberpunk characters, I think that it has nothing to do with Cyberpunk, and could be something with their new game releases like one of their other Witcher projects, or be referencing releasing The Witcher 4, but seeing The Witcher 4 in 18 months would be insane. Most people are speculating we'll see that in maybe late 2020.
Yeah, The Witcher 4 does not also look like it's going to come anytime soon. And again, it's like, I don't know, that Witcher 4 trailer did radiate a lot of girl boss infinity energy that didn't make a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong, Ciri's chronically like the strongest character in the game. But the way they portrayed her was, well, it's not she's great because she is great. It's more like she's great because everyone around her has been diminished.
Possibly.
And that is a woeful sign of modern day writing. Okay, modern day writers can't, for some reason, they don't even seemingly try. They don't even try. They can't make characters great because of their actions, because these concepts just don't work for them. Okay, modern day writers like George R.R. Martin, that retard. They can't write wholesome things. They can't write people who are not self-obsessed freaks. That's why Game of Thrones is not gonna end ever. And well, that's a lot of modern day writing. They can only write characters that are good in some form or way by making the characters around them just worse and punching bags, because they don't understand what wholesome even means. It's pretty sad, honestly.
2028 or even 2029. They just recently announced Cyberpunk 2077 coming to Mac and the Switch 2, and hopefully it doesn't cost $100 when it does come to Switch 2, but I wouldn't think that's going to net them more money than Phantom Liberty alone. We know that there's also a new Cyberpunk anime like Edge Runners coming out, so it could be that a new DLC will be releasing, maybe not even one as big as Phantom Liberty, but releasing alongside that new anime. The Mac port and the Switch 2 port bringing all of those new players, it could possibly make them more money than Phantom Liberty did. By the way, so far the Switch 2 port looks amazing. Not only that, but it's been confirmed to have cross progression so that you can switch platforms whenever you want. And it is indeed not $100. The Switch 2 port includes the Ultimate Edition of Cyberpunk 2077 and costs $69.99, so a pretty standard price, and you get Phantom Liberty. This video has been brought to you by a game I've worked with a few times on the channel now, celebrating their 6th anniversary, and because of it, they are giving away awards. Thank you to Raid for sponsoring the video. Phantom Liberty brought even more players than Edge Runners did, and for good reason. It's one of the best expansions for a game, maybe ever. CD Projekt Red is like the...
Yeah, and by the way, this expansion proved one thing, and I have never heard anyone talk about this, but it's the fact that it doesn't matter the genre of the game that you do this in. It always will work. You just make something good and it sells. I know, shocking. Very, very basic life stuff. But people kind of forget about it nowadays. People forget about a lot of basic reality things, I feel like, nowadays. But, you know, again, the expansion for Cyberpunk was so different than the base game. It's a complete switch from what you kind of are used to, and yet it did so well. Usually games never do this. Usually games never try anything like this, because that's supposed to be a disaster. But if you do it well, if you do it good, there you go. People will buy. People will like it nonetheless.
The kings of video game DLCs at this point, and the thing is, we were supposed to have more. That's why it seems very likely that a surprise expansion may be in the works, because before the release of the game, where they were sort of focused on fixing it, they had multiple DLCs planned. One of them was the moon. Kind of like what we got a glimpse of in Edge Runners and...
Oh, we heard about the moon. The moon sounds so cool. Take value. Well, you can make it cool. Technically, there's not that much on the moon, but whatever.
In Phantom Liberty itself, there was supposed to be an actual moon DLC, and after playing Phantom Liberty, it feels like the second expansion could have been a possible sequel to that. There was actually leaked screenshots that came out a while back that are basically confirmed to be real now at this point, since some of the assets seem to have ended up becoming part of Phantom Liberty. You also have the Crystal Palace, which is not a space casino, like a lot of people seem to just say it is, but essentially an entire city floating in space. And yeah, it would likely feature some casinos, apartments, and just about everything that you can do down in Night City. But these are things I think we won't see until Orion. But if we are indeed getting another full DLC, I'd think they would go with something that's already been planned out and partially developed.
Yeah, I talked about this. Not getting another DLC at this point for CDPR Red seems insane, ludicrous, completely unlikely, because between The Witcher and the new Cyberpunk, when he's follow up Orion, like what except that there's nothing. A DLC would fit so well.
Another promised but cancelled feature that was supposed to appear in Cyberpunk 2077 that looks to be coming to Cyberpunk Orion is multiplayer. We know this because they've posted numerous open positions to work on Cyberpunk 2077 sequel and described the roles as needing background in both multiplayer and single-player games. And they've said this before, Cyberpunk 2077, like I said, was supposed to have multiplayer, so take that however you want. But what I really want is co-op. Sure, a multiplayer PvP could be fun with all the different builds in this game, where they could bring a bunch of different potential classes to choose from, but the only thing I think would really make Cyberpunk 2077 even more replayable is being able to play it with a friend. There is a co-op mod coming to Cyberpunk 2077 for that, and I'll definitely be trying it out when it releases, but nothing's going to compare to the developers themselves implementing that. So I hope when they
Yeah, the Cyberpunk multiplayer mod that currently exists is like super jank and buggy.
say Cyberpunk Orion will have multiplayer, I really hope that means at least co-op. We know that the next Cyberpunk game isn't going to be releasing for a long time. It's not releasing until sometime after The Witcher 4, and not just that, but they only have a small portion of people working on Orion. Granted, they recently said that they're doubling that amount of people by the end of the year. A lot of people like myself want to be optimistic and say, well, since The Witcher 4 isn't coming out until at least 2027, Cyberpunk Orion could come out in 2028 or 2029. But it's very likely that we won't see Orion until at least 2030. The only reason I think it might even come that soon is because they have more staff than they did for Cyberpunk 2077 and are
Much staff is not necessarily a good thing. And again, get sued for breach of confidentiality, get sued by shareholders for blatant fucking lies, and CDPR Red has magically enough money to open up 2 new studios and invoke hellscapes? Yeah. Sounds legit. Doesn't sound sus at all. Interesting, no?
are now using Unreal Engine 5, but 2030 is still probably a pretty optimistic guess. We know
Also, the engine switch is kind of insane. People that are smarter... listen. I'm not saying I'm bad at computers, but I do firmly, unironically, and seriously believe that they do run on black magic, okay? The Roswell incident theories are way more likely than microscopic things that do things and someone fucking figured out how to do this, and that's why you can see beyond your screen. And you still can't tell if I'm just a voice inside your head or is this reality. Who knows? If you're insane, you don't know that you're insane. Maybe you think everything's fine, but in reality, everyone's looking at you like a drooling moron. Or this is a simulation, who knows? But in any case, the fact that they're also switching engines is kind of insane, okay? So, when Orion comes out, expect it to be like 5 terabytes minimum, most likely, because, modern day gaming.
they're also trying to release the next entire Witcher trilogy within the
Hell
same decade.
yeah!
So that would mean Cyberpunk Orion, the Witcher remake, and 3 new Witcher games within the next 10 years or so, which just doesn't even seem possible. Mike Pondsmith, the creator of the Cyberpunk universe, the guy that made the tabletop board games, has stated in the past that he's writing multiple character stories like Morgan Blackhand, for example, who he said he's working on and finishing up his story before CD Projekt Red can use him. He also said that Morgan Blackhand will eventually resurface and that he's just been traveling around working as some sort of cyberpunk Batman. And I think this is like one of the main guys we're going to see expand upon in Cyberpunk Orion. And I think like a large part of why is just because the fan base loves this guy.
10 years that Morgan's doing some fairly important stuff, and the best I can say is imagine if the Batman traveled a lot. And he left Gotham City every so often to deal. So Morgan is out and about. And we have a deal, me and CD, which is they don't get to do something with Morgan until, I agree to it. And so right now what's going on is I am building backstory into Red of what Morgan did to get up to 77, and you're going to see him in a couple other places that aren't necessarily Night City, because we're talking about expanding the world a bit.
Nice.
They've also been sort of hinting at another update. Pavel Sasko, a guy who's worked at CD Projekt Red as a quest designer and now an associate game director for Cyberpunk Orion, tweeted out asking what features people think are missing from Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I do think we'll probably get another update for Cyberpunk. I mean, they just keep releasing update after saying there's no more, but I think this is very likely just referencing
Again, the update stuff, if you don't wait.
what they want to put.
The update stuff, if you don't know, was just a marketing stunt. They said no more updates, and surprise, new update, better this, better that. It's done by a third-party studio that they hired just to do these updates, but still they're happening. And CDVR is just using that as a way to constantly just milk. Probably no one knows what this is even a reference to. Man, world is sad, ain't it? Anyway. CDPR is just using that as a way to milk goodwill from the player base because people are excited about the free updates, especially when they say no more updates, my friend. We are now working on this, and suddenly it's BAM! Update. There we go. It's just life.
Put in Cyberpunk Orion. But yeah, during the earnings call where CD Projekt Red stated that they were expecting a large profit, the reason that they were talking about this is because of a sort of bonus program that they have riding on them where the more money they make, the larger
Not all of these police officers women.
the bonus management gets. These
Kinda looks like it, except the new one.
guys have been putting out nothing
No wonder he can rampage like that.
but quality games, but stuff like this always just kind of worries me a bit, especially because they said they're currently working on a mobile game on top of all of those other projects being developed by Scopely, a mobile game developer who has developed a lot of different types of games like Stumble Guys and Marvel Strike Force, but also
Yeah, it doesn't look good. The mobile game thing does not look good.
a lot of board game implementations on mobile like Yahtzee and Monopoly, for example. So I mean, it's possible that at least a quality Cyberpunk tabletop RPG on mobile might come out of it. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but I think that would be probably the coolest thing to come out of whatever they're doing together. So yeah, it would make sense with the anime. If you remember update 1.6 that dropped alongside Edgerunners, both the anime on top of that
Hell yeah.
update that brought Edgerunners content with it brought in an insane amount of players, at least in the short term, with the game having
Yeah.
over 100k players at a time on Steam alone, years after the release of the game. It literally brought it back to life. The only things we really know about the
True.
anime is that
And yes, it's a Netflix thing, which was insane. But no longer anything Netflix is going to be good, okay? Devil May Cry, ruined. Castlevania, completely gayed out of existence. It is just over. It is just over.
it is not going to be an Edgerunners Part 2, and some more sort of bad news is that it is not going to be animated by Studio Trigger. Even worse news is that they don't seem to have really gone for another high-quality animation studio, but it seems Netflix is doing it themselves through their own
Rest in piss. The Cyberpunk animated universe, you will be missed.
studio, which seems even more hit and miss than Netflix shows are in general. It seems like when Netflix animates something themselves, they hire another animation studio to do it, or they are actually like co-producing it, but that doesn't really make me feel that much better. Anything they've put out themselves typically ends up like more 3D animated, and it's never anything great. I've already been a little skeptical with how dirty they've been doing The Witcher. I was starting to
I mean, to be Hero X, I have not seen this, but I'm assuming this is trash. I'm assuming this is so dead in the water that no one even shat on it, which is the maximum level of this, death that you can give to any media.
read the Witcher books and had just finished the second book when Netflix's
I mean, by the way, 3D animation, there's two examples. One is Ajin, where the 3D animation looks like crap, but the story and everything that's happening is good and you like it, so you kind of forgive the 3D animation for being shit. And the second one is obviously to be Hero X, currently one of the top animes this season. Really good. And that shit is 3D, and it's really good. It fully showcases what you can do if you take a bunch of Chinese programmers, animators, and whatnot, and you threaten their families unless they make a good product. Really good stuff.
Sirens of the Deep animated movie was coming out. You know, that movie being ripped from what I think might be the best short story in all of the Witcher books now. And man, they butchered the hell out of that. I can't even understand how you take the best story in the books, at least in my opinion, and screw it up to that freaking level, dude.
You allow Netflix to do stuff. That's how you do it. Anyway, that's 10 out of 10. That was Astro That's how you pronounce it, I think. Anyway, bye.